teaching, so I taught them quite regularly.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Nabil Kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Welcome everyone, dear respected viewers, back on an extremely beneficial channel and program, Ask Eman, where you get to ask your questions affecting your daily life with a Sheikh to help and guide you and provide that answer direct to you. And there are different ways you can communicate your message. So you can communicate your message through text message if you're a little shy. You can message through WhatsApp. We've got our WhatsApp number showing right below us right now on 07422398833. And you can even call us via WhatsApp as well. And you can call us via the studio as well, which is 0203 515. And the number will be down below. I don't have access to that just yet. But yeah, so you can call us as well, 0757. So make sure, inshallah ta'ala, you do, throughout this conversation, this program, pick up the number and call us, inshallah ta'ala. Today we have with us a wonderful Sheikh, Sheikh Shams Ad-Duhaa. Assalamu alaikum wa
Alaikum
rahmatullah.
salam wa barakatuh.
So Sheikh, just before the program started, we were discussing, as everyone is discussing COVID, and you were discussing how people had different symptoms, or perhaps different magnitudes of the symptoms, and some were affected for weeks, and they were fatigued. Some actually passed through it very well with very little symptoms, and from a spiritual perspective, I mean, what advice would you give for people who have this scare that they may have COVID, and how could they, as well as going to the GP and seeking advice and making sure they take that precautionary measures, but spiritually, what should they be thinking from a mindset perspective towards this?
So I was saying that I actually I caught COVID about a month ago, and I've actually only just started to recover from the symptoms and so on. So I was just saying that, look, people, I've mainly on social media just been updating because I had to cancel some of my classes. But one of the things that I realized is that because symptoms vary so much in people, the people who are asymptomatic tend to contribute to a sense of, don't worry, it's not a big deal, or it's just flu symptoms,
Yeah.
etc. I've had it and it was no big deal.
Ah,
And they can't relate to the people who've had the really, really severe symptoms unless they know somebody personally who's
yeah.
had the severe symptoms. And that creates that, among some people, it creates that sense of maybe it's not so bad and so on. Whereas, and then you have people who are either in the front line or have had a lot of people they know suffering, or they've suffered serious symptoms themselves, and they tell you the opposite. And
Yeah.
there seems to be this a bit of a kind of contest going on between the two extremes, between the two views. One, kind of we're giving these severe warnings, etc., because it can get really serious, and others are like, oh no, it's not a big deal. And the truth is that both things are true. That it is extremely severe and even fatal for some people. We have a family friend now who, Allah give him shifa, but he's basically he's got it so bad that he literally physically can't move. That's how weak he is from it. But at the other extreme, you have people who even though they've tested positive, literally are able to go about their life as if nothing has happened to them. And the truth is that both things are true. Similarly, and in the same way, I would answer your question.
Yeah.
That this whole thing about being cautious and worrying about the symptoms or worrying about catching it, as well as squaring that with our faith and our tawakkul and our belief in qadar, both things are true,
Okay.
right? Everything is the qadr of Allah. Everything is by the qadr of Allah,
Yeah.
right? Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it clearly, right? وَخَلَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَقَدَّرَهُ تَقْدِيرًا. Everything is muqaddar, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I've created everything by my decree, with decree, as in everything falls under the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless. So what then remains under the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what then remains is the parts of the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within which human beings are required to act. And here we act not on the basis of what may or may not be decreed, because we can never know that.
Yeah.
We act on the basis of what is ordained. What Allah, by ordained, I mean what is commanded.
Yes,
So we
yes.
act on the basis of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded.
Yeah.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree and Allah's command are both equally enforced. One is an inevitability, right?
Yeah.
And the other is
Being the
the
decree.
that's being the decree.
Yeah.
And the other is an obligation from which a believer can have no escape. The only difference is that is inescapable. This a person can choose to ignore,
True.
for which they will be accountable on the day of judgment. And they will find that in their hisab that they have committed a sin. So taking medication, although the ulama do discuss whether it's obligatory to take medication or not and to take precautions,
Yeah.
etc. And they say that a person is not obligated to medicate
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
when they are ill. It is nevertheless something that people should do. With regards to something like a viral infection, I would say that people are obligated to take precautions and to medicate, because the rationale for ulama that say that a person isn't obligated to medicate themselves is that first of all, because there doesn't seem to be a strong argument, a strong imperative from the Sharia commanding medication.
Yeah.
But secondly, it's they are not harming anyone else.
Yeah.
Right. So they can choose to have a kind of an absolute trust in Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, knowing that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has endowed medicating ability within our bodies.
But Sheikh,
But when it's a viral infection, you not taking precautions harms another.
Exactly, yes.
Does that make sense?
Isn't it qaida as well, like, the hadith, la darar la dirar.
Exactly. So la darar wa la dirar can apply to the first part as well. It
Yeah.
can apply to not harming yourself.
Yeah.
But the argument is that, well, we can't be certain of the harm to ourselves
Yeah.
for not medicating a particular condition, and a person can take the pain upon themselves. I mean, it's a debate anyway,
Yeah.
right? In any
It's
case, it's not a done and dusted issue. But when it comes to things that are viral in nature and um, things that can transcend onto others and can cause harm and the things that are contagious in nature, here it's not just about you, it's about you harming others. And I would say here precautions and even medication, etc., particularly the quarantine type precautions, are an obligation, because
Yes.
now it's the obligation towards others to protect them.
It's a very interesting discussion. But just to add to the other side of things that you mentioned as well, that is also the element of tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well.
But tawakkul is not, you're never without tawakkul, because medication is not guaranteed. The effect of medication isn't guaranteed. People who are dying of COVID, they're not dying because they didn't medicate. They're dying despite the medication. So in it, tawakkul is like I said, the qadr aspect, the tawakkul aspect, the iman aspect is inevitable. There is no escaping that. That goes hand in hand, regardless of whether you medicate, whether you take precaution, whether you don't take precaution, etc. That's there inevitably. One person said this really nicely, and I often say this, that in these types of scenarios, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed a disease for people, so not taking seriously is a type of denial of qadr as well, right? Because that is also muqaddar by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
Right? It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has afflicted you or afflicted a lot of people with an illness. For you to not acknowledge the implications of that illness is also a kind of to be in denial of the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And your responsibility.
And exactly. So it's important. And remember, if you're neglectful of symptoms and sins and so on, then you're also neglectful of the social implications of that, because sometimes suffering and illness is tackled together, right? You tackle it together as a society. When you don't take these things into consideration, you're kind of removing yourself from that social responsibility.
I mean, we live in a very individualistic society as well. That might...
Yeah, but people don't realize that when they don't take these things seriously and don't give these things their due regard, they are being individualistic.
Yes.
That's what they don't. They think they're being religious, but they're not. They are being actually individualistic.
Yeah.
In a way that they don't realize. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge them by their intentions. But the most important aspect here is that if it's a contagion, then you are harming others by not taking precaution.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the most important thing to basically take on board.
So for those viewers, that was meant to be the reminder for the show, and it's very very intense discussion. Alhamdulillah.
I've just been through it, so I'm telling you, it's hard. It's
But
really hard.
alhamdulillah, from what Sheikh has gathered, just we advise everyone that's
And it's not the flu.
it's not the flu.
I've
Okay,
never.
it's definitely COVID. It's definitely real.
I've suffered the flu before. This is
Yeah.
not the flu. I'm telling you.
Alhamdulillah. We do advise our viewers, as always, to take the precautionary measures and do follow your local guidelines as well. It is real, as Sheikh has announced it to be as well. And there are obviously two things to look into. Obviously, the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's also putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also taking the measures and the precautions required, especially within the local communities.
I mean, just remember, tawakkul is not something that we can switch on and off. Tawakkul has to always be there. We trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of our affairs. Right? So, if you want to have tawakkul, it's not something you switch on and off for COVID.
Yeah.
Your tawakkul is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of what you do.
It's a comprehensive
tawakkul
solution.
It's a comprehensive element of our iman.
Yeah.
Essentially, to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all of his names and attributes is to have tawakkul in him.
Manifestation of his names and attributes.
Exactly.
Barakallahu feekum, Shaykhuna. We actually have one caller, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, your name and where you're calling from.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to keep my name anonymous. Calling from London. I wanted to ask the Sheikh, what is the Islamic ruling on, possessing or buying products that are colored gold but are actually not gold? So, for example, a phone that might be colored gold but it actually isn't really gold, or a laptop or a pen, for example.
What exactly is it? If it's not gold, then what is it?
I'm guessing
it is or it isn't.
It looks like gold. Is that what you're suggesting?
It looks like gold. Yeah. It
Okay.
looks
like a
gold.
golden watch that's not made of gold.
Yeah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair, brother.
Okay, so it's actual gold that's forbidden in the Sharia. The color gold isn't forbidden.
Even the imitation.
Yes, even if it's when we say imitation gold, we mean imitation gold that has no gold in it. In fact, the fuqaha say that even if there is gold in it, but gold is less than 50%, then it is permissible to use it.
Less than 50%.
Less than 50%.
That's the threshold.
Yeah. Basically, if it's they use the term ghash. If it's ghash, meaning if it's something that is mostly another substance, but it has some gold mixed in it, right, which might give it a bit of a gold sheen or a bit of that color. On some even some jewelry is like that. Then it's not forbidden. It's because they apply the principle of al-akthari hukm al-kull, that it's the majority that takes the ruling. So if most of the item is gold, if more than 50% of the item is gold, then it's classed by Sharia as gold, and that then the prohibition applies to it.
Okay.
So if the fuqaha have even gone as far as even considering metal where gold is mixed with it, and applying this principle of like if most of it is, then it's gold. If most of it isn't, then it isn't gold.
Is that like istihsan kind of?
No. It's obviously, because at the end of the day, things have to be defined, and it's because even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, if you have a gold coin that has gold mixed in it, but most of it isn't gold, then they didn't regard it as. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have to go by the convention within which the Sharia was revealed, and the convention within which the Sharia was applied.
Could you buy extension?
So it's on that basis. And so the color definitely doesn't apply. I'm just trying to illustrate how far the fuqaha have gone on this issue.
Yeah.
When it's not gold at all, it's just color, then without a doubt, there's no question of.
What about if the watch, for sake of argument, obviously I'm not sure what the brother anonymous was referring to in terms of like whether it was a watch or, but sometimes you have watches that use gold inside it, but the outside isn't.
So again, if most of the watch isn't gold, it's permissible to use. Also, gold plate, if it's just a cover.
Yeah.
It would be permissible to use because most of the item is other metals.
Okay.
Similarly, people follow up with things like if it's got jewels in it, etc., etc. Those things are not forbidden.
Okay.
And also, lastly, on the question of gold, if it is to do with something that is necessary from a medical point of view, for example, gold teeth and those types of things, then those things are permissible anyway.
Wouldn't silver teeth be better though, I'd argue? Or is it?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know the exact medical aspect of it, but apparently, obviously, silver discolors, etc.
Okay.
And it gets dirty and so on. Gold, and so I think as a metal, gold is better to use. In fact, there's a hadith of a Sahabi using it for his nose.
Oh, subhanallah.
and he had actually used silver, and he was still having trouble with it. And the Prophet ﷺ told him to use gold.
Interesting.
He said it would be better for you.
Ah.
So
There are conditions where it can be applied.
Yeah, it can be applied, especially if it's
medical.
something medical, and there is a benefit to using gold, such as it not staining as much, and so on. Obviously, nowadays, the most common use of it of gold for such a purpose is in dentistry for teeth. So in those types of situations, it's definitely permissible.
Interesting. Barakallah feekum. I hope that answered your question, brother. The very, very, very beneficial question. Alhamdulillah. For those of you that would like to contribute to the discussion, then you can use the WhatsApp to send your messages through, and I'll be reading those messages to the Sheikh. Or you could even call through WhatsApp, or you can call via the student number, which is 0203 515 0757 0203 515 0757. We have a few questions actually from the WhatsApp, so I'm going to start with the first one that I've received. Does the wudu break if a woman applies makeup? No. Okay, there you go, sister. That's straight up answer. It doesn't break.
No, even if there was an impure substance in the makeup, that may affect your salah, but it wouldn't affect your wudu.
Okay, interesting.
Because it's a condition of salah to have no impurity on you.
Yes.
But coming in touch with impurity doesn't break coming in touch with physical impurity doesn't break your wudu. Only ritual impurity breaks your wudu.
Okay.
I.e., it's the act of breaking wind, the act of relieving yourself in the toilet.
What about
those things are known as ritual impurity?
Okay.
That breaks your wudu.
What about nail varnish that's like impermeable?
Nail varnish, if you applied it after your wudu, it wouldn't break the wudu.
Okay.
But then subsequently, if you did wudu with the nail varnish on, it would obstruct the validity of your wudu because water wouldn't get to the nail.
Okay.
So it's two different things. So the question here is about makeup or something or other breaking your wudu. So that means the person was in a pre-existing state of wudu. And then they're asking, if I apply makeup or some other substance, would that break my wudu? And the answer to that is no. Applying something, even if it's an impurity, doesn't break your wudu. What breaks your wudu is certain other things like, breaking wind, going to the toilet, bleeding. These are the things those specific manifestations break the wudu. Not coming in contact with a substance doesn't break your wudu, although it may, if it is impure, affect your salah.
Okay, but could you argue that it may not break your wudu, but it could be sinful, or is it just
no, not necessarily? It could be, yes. It depends on what it is.
Okay, so it's very.
It depends on what it is. It depends on what it is and what impact. I mean, for example, if you're a farmer, if you work in a stable, you're coming in contact with impurity all the time.
Yeah.
There are things that we have to do in our lives that bring us in contact with impurity. That doesn't make it sinful. The sin is a question of whether it's an act of disobedience against Allah.
Yeah.
So that has to be looked at.
Okay.
Is the person disobeying Allah in some way?
Okay, inshallah. Barakallah feekum. Is a man allowed to wear a wedding ring?
In principle, yes, but it depends on what the wedding ring is made of. So we just had that question about gold.
Okay.
If it's more than 50% gold, it's not permissible to use. Silver, platinum, other substances, it's permissible. There's some details. Fuqaha have discussed. There's some details about it. There's this sense that somehow a ring is encouraged before the Prophet ﷺ used to use a ring, but that's not necessarily an agreed upon position. The only time a ring would be encouraged if it was used for the same purpose as the Prophet, which is to use it as a seal.
Yes.
Only then would it be a sunnah. Otherwise it isn't necessarily a sunnah. So the question here really isn't about whether it's sunnah or not. It's whether can I do it? Is it permissible? And the answer is, if it's permissible, if it's made of a permissible substance, then yes.
I mean, that is very common dialogue that I hear when they purchase a ring, saying this is the sunnah, but actually there was a purpose behind that ring.
I wouldn't. I don't agree that it's a sunnah.
Yeah.
Especially a wedding ring, which has a completely different purpose. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to wear a wedding ring. I'm saying it's just it's permissible if it's made of something permissible.
Interesting. Barakallah feekum. Okay, we have another question here. I believe this question is genuinely asked every week. So you may have received a question like this before, and I think the other asatid have received this kind of question before. And in fact, there is an inside joke where people are joking about how this question becomes, so recurrent. So, Assalamu alaikum. My question is Forex permissible? If you use risk management and Sharia compliant broker that is riba free. So just generally it's asking, if Forex is permissible with these conditions.
Yeah, so I'll be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
I still haven't been able to get my head around it.
Okay.
All I've done is looked at the various ulama and the opinions they have about it.
Yeah.
The vast majority of ulama basically say that it isn't permissible. Right? I struggle with some of these types of issues in terms of the intricacies and all the financial instruments involved and so on. Never been particularly good at that. But my understanding is that, the vast majority of scholars opine that it basically there's no way of Forex trading as it's done out there to be permissible if there is a question of Sharia compliance, if there's a Sharia advisor who says it is compatible with the Sharia, then I won't comment on that person's opinion. It really depends on what that opinion is based on, who that person is, and what that opinion is based on.
Yeah. I mean, the question does say if you use risk management and a Sharia compliant broker, that is riba free.
Risk management,
but that doesn't really have
risk management doesn't. I don't think it's the be all and end all from a Sharia point of view. And the question of a Sharia advisor depends on who it is and what they're relying on, what they're basing it on.
And would you also argue that the ulama are even just without all of that, regardless, the essence of Forex trading itself is what the ulama write about, whether it's permissible or not? Or is it?
No. People have given fatwa on it in detail, and they've looked at it, and they've said that it's impermissible. That structurally, there's no way. I've even read opinions that say that structurally, there's no way for it to be permissible. That makes sense. The Forex trading element. There's currency exchanging, etc.
Yeah.
And the possibility of whether there's room to make some profit there and so on.
Yeah.
Which is a different question. It's not some people mistaken it to be something as simple as that. It's not. Forex trading is much more complex. And the reason why they talk about risk management is because they think that contemporary ideas, instruments around risk management fulfill the criteria in the Sharia for there to be no deception. But risk management and gharar, if in Shari'i parlance, are two very different things. Contemporary risk management can mean all sorts of things. It can mean insurance. Right? Whereas in Shari'i parlance, that would simply mean that would be an additional haram. So we would have to look into the details of that. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not an expert, and I'm not saying there isn't a way for this to work. And for this to become Sharia compliant. I haven't seen it. I'm probably not the guy to ask about it either because I don't know the details. But all I'm saying is that most ulama, they tend to who are informed about this tend to say that that it isn't permissible, and as such it should be avoided.
Barakallahu fikum, Shaykhana, for that intellectual, honest response. I hope that answered your question, brother or sister. Just to remind our viewers, you can call us, inshallah ta'ala. Feel free to call us. You can message us through WhatsApp. And we have.
By the way, I keep getting asked the question, so I keep ending up looking into it. But
eventually,
for the life of me, I still can't get around the details.
It's not your cup of tea.
It's not my cup. It's just the financial stuff is just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Basic questions of buyur, yes. But anyway, so I rely on other ulama who kind of specialize in financial matters, and I do know there are ulama who have said it's permissible, and I know that's contributing to the confusion, and it's your prerogative if you want to rely on them. But again, it depends on who the advisor is and what they've relied upon. And I guess it's a new question, and details will continue to emerge, and opinions will continue to evolve. Wallahu a'lam.
We have a few minutes before the break. I'd just like to remind our viewers, inshallah ta'ala, to do follow us on our social media, Eman Channel TV, on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Facebook stream right now. We have a YouTube stream right now. If you are currently watching us through Facebook and YouTube right now, do drop us a comment, inshallah ta'ala, and recognize us, inshallah. We do have one caller before the break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Your name and where you're calling from?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am calling from Birmingham. I have a question that is been bothering me since it's about family forum. I asked a question about it before, but what I want to know, I want to explain the details about this forum to Sheikh so that he can help me, inshallah. The forum is about the whole purpose is about to know each other because family we're not living together. Some people live in different countries.
Yeah.
So sometimes they put if somebody die in our country or different country, they put the news there so that we know. Or sometimes we make a dua each other there, and but at the same time, sometimes they also share joke like for example, cousin to cousin. They're a little bit older people, but for like marriage, but it's a joke as a joke. So
So unfortunately, sister, we've had to put you on hold because the break is imminent. So inshallah ta'ala, the Sheikh will respond to your question and also tell your question once more after the break, inshallah. We do apologize for that. So do catch us after the break, inshallah ta'ala. We'll be going for a very short break for a few minutes, inshallah. Look forward to seeing you, ta'ala. Please stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Nabi al-Kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. So welcome back to the second segment of our Ask Eman with Sheikh Shams Ad-Duhaa. We have, as reiterated before, we have two numbers where you can contact us from: the studio number 0203-515-0757, or you can even WhatsApp us via even WhatsApp call or just WhatsApp message 0742-239-8833. And we have our YouTube and Facebook streams you can comment on as well, inshallah ta'ala. So without further ado, Shaykhuna, we had a caller just before the break who had a question about the forums. I think she was referring to these sort of online groups, chat groups. Inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum, sister. If you're still there, we would love to hear your question again, inshallah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, it's a WhatsApp group. Yeah, family forum.
Yeah, okay, inshallah.
Yeah. So they cousins, they used to sell marriage joke, like for example, maybe I will just marry this one, but they're not living together. Also, they are a little bit older. Yeah, but some of my mahram are there, and some of my cousins, they are not mahram. So then for me, when I heard that, and then I told myself maybe because I had it before, they said to make a joke in the forums is not good. So I just removed myself there. But I told them that I have a memory phone because I don't want any problem just because of only me.
What do you mean by married jokes?
For example, this one doesn't have a husband. The other one will say, "Oh, maybe let me just marry her as a joke for cousins."
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just that.
Okay.
So then after when I went out there and I make an excuse, I told them that I have a memory phone. I will take a break. My phone, I have a problem on my phone, like for example memory. So I repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I will not go back to the forum again. But I didn't make any swear that So in that, after that, I see myself that they add me. One of my cousins add me on that forum again. But since they add me, I still didn't make any contact with them. I don't listen to anything there. So I'm wondering if I'm starting to use it again, whether am I sinful because the recent I did that I'm not going to go back there. So I'm worried for that. That's why I'm asking now, because there's a family forum and sometimes they bring important things that when somebody die, I don't know, also that somebody that I don't know to be so that we can know each other. So yeah, they used to say that share this marriage, but for now I don't know whether they still do it or not because I haven't been listening to them for long.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Jazakallah khair, sister, for telling us that situation. And just generally, I mean, just on a general level, the Sheikh will answer it, inshallah, on how to,
So, this is about it's a family WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
And the concern is around, should I stay in the group if some people are posting things that are inappropriate? And the particular example here is somebody making a joke about marrying somebody else who's already married, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Look, WhatsApp groups, they're a new phenomenon. So just forget thinking about WhatsApp groups. Think about this if this was a physical gathering.
Yeah.
And people were talking. Inevitably, if you're gathered with lots of different people, and particularly if they're family, not everybody is going to be speaking. The standard of appropriate, inappropriate, or the standard of propriety isn't the same to everyone. Not everybody has the same standards and so on. And you're then torn between participating in something that might be sinful, but also maintaining relationship with the family. So in the case with the sister, if she leaves the group, she doesn't know about what's going on, etc., because the family relies on the group to for those updates. Nobody writes letters anymore, of course. Nobody even makes phone calls anymore. My advice: I don't see the particular example of a joke here as that much of a big deal. At least not something that is sinful for you to see or witness.
Just the concept of a joke.
Just that, but no, just that particular joke. I don't know what else goes on in the forum.
Yeah.
Right. For example, if somebody was backbiting somebody else in the group,
Yeah.
right, and you're there as an observer,
Yeah.
You're there as a participant in the group, you know, and if this was a regular recurrence or other inappropriate images were being shown, it was you're now becoming witness to sinfulness, seeing sinful images and that kind of thing, then I would be more concerned, right? I don't know if that's the case in this group. What I would do, however, is rather than leave, I would politely protest.
Yeah.
Because if it's family, you should be able to.
Yeah.
Right? You should be able to say, since this is a family group, you know, for us to be informed of what's going on in the family and so on, can we keep away some of these things because I don't feel comfortable? I would. It's better to maintain the family collective on the group, but kind of censor the group from these things. And if people still ignore you, then just don't open those types of messages. You can tell, right? Somebody's posted a video of something.
Yeah.
That's not information about the family. You understand what I'm trying to say? Somebody posts something and it's family pictures. It might be their children or something, and everybody will say, "Oh, mashallah," or they're going, "Oh," you know, stuff like that. That might be a video you can open. You know, you can tell, right? You can tell when something is appropriate or not appropriate. When it isn't, you can just ignore it. But to remove the possibility of sinfulness from ourselves, we should do a bit of amar bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, since it's family and we have we have the ability to at least say, look, can we not do this?
Yeah.
Right? Can we not?
I mean, you mentioned it's a new phenomenon. I think generally from my little observation, Sheikh, and you can elaborate and clarify as well. I think what happens is that there is generational interpretation of how to use social media, how to use WhatsApp, how to use these forums, and you find the elderly, generally speaking, they use it. Well, generally speaking, they use it in a limited way. When you see
they're more
practical way, younger people, they actually use it a lot more, and they know how to use it. They have different things you can use: documents, photos, annotation. These kinds. They use it for different things, or sharing memes, as they say.
But again, even then, it's not all inappropriate. And not all jokes are bad. Not all jokes are haram. Good or bad is a different kind of measure, but not all jokes are sinful. So my point is that I think get some clarity about what is or isn't. I would say swearing, profanity, backbiting, inappropriate images,
even inappropriate assumptions,
spreading slander about others, the kind of things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade in the Quran, you know, direct mockery of another person in the group, that kind of thing. These are the things that we should censor from our groups, or if that is not successful, then we ignore if there is a reason why we need to remain in the group. My advice, and I said this last time, my advice to the sister remains that since it's a family group and you need to stay updated on family news, etc. I would say remain in the group, and there is nothing wrong with staying in the group. However, should you see something that is inappropriate or sinful, you know, inappropriate sometimes, like it can be just a word. It's just a word, right? So if it's something sinful that you don't want to partake in or participate in, you should protest, because it's your family, and inshallah you will be absolved of any sin yourself. And at least that's a positive contribution to the group, right? Because this stuff will continue in your absence, and then you will also miss out on family news and so on. So just try to be a positive voice in the group, rather than just leave and then wonder, like, if somebody might have passed away and you don't know about it and so on. So think of it as being part of a mailing list, right? And you know, it's necessary. It's your work mailing list or something like that. And sometimes somebody might put something in there that's not appropriate.
Generally,
so you just ignore it.
But just generally, these forums that we have, and these groups that we all in, everyone has these WhatsApp groups and stuff like that. I mean, a general overview. What would you principally like? What?
Well, there's two parts to this. There are two aspects to discussing these things. One is just indulging in social media too much, regardless of the question of content. So let's assume that a person is indulging in social media and everything that they ever participate in, right, is good. Right? Like, it's always positive. They only join good groups with good brothers and sisters, and you know, like it's always Islamic messaging and blah 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 blah, and but they're on it all the time. And it's resulting in them becoming late for salah, not going to jama'ah in the masjid, neglecting their family, neglecting their children, etc., etc. So there is this whole question of becoming addicted to social media, which is above and beyond the question of the appropriateness of the content. So first of all, that's something that everybody has to get a handle on, right?
Yeah.
Your participation in social media, even if it's all good, should still be moderated.
Yes.
You understand? Because it's not the same. You're not, if you catching up on messages on social media is not the same as reading a book. It's not the same as seeking knowledge. It's not the same as doing a course. It's not the same as spending time doing dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not, right? Stuff that you see in these brief messages on social media, you don't remember.
These reminders.
You don't, you don't remember, you don't learn. And they're designed, when a sheikh gives a short 1 minute reminder for, I don't know, Instagram, which I absolutely hate, right? Because Instagram is evidence of people's lack of attention span, right? But shuyukh sometimes they are still entertaining and they do it right.
Yeah.
Really, what they're trying to do is they're not really encouraging you to stay on Instagram and read the next message. When they remind you to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're not asking you to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Instagram. They're asking you to go leave Instagram, go sit somewhere and remember Allah, then do some dhikr, or do some tilawah of the Quran, or do some salah, etc. Right? Go out there and do some good, not live on Instagram. So regardless of content, right, there is this question of it is necessary to moderate our use of social media. That's the first thing.
I mean, it's just the dopamine rush that you get.
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
designed
Meaning that it is possible for a person to only consume good content, but yet for it to be mere entertainment.
And it could affect them in other things and other domains.
Yeah, exactly. Real life, exactly. Meaning that you could be so addicted that you're actually not living your life at all. You're living other people's lives. And essentially you're using it as a form of entertainment. Right? As opposed to learning. You're not necessarily learning because this is not how learning is done. Otherwise schools would be running on Instagram, right? Now, these are social supplements. Yeah. You don't spend your whole day hanging about with your mates. Do you understand? That's just something that you do on the side. The rest of your day is work, family, etc., etc. So that balance has to be maintained. Definitely. Then comes the question of content. Then on the principle of content, we can say it's a tool, it's a device. If the content is permissible, it's permissible. If the content is impermissible, it's impermissible.
And I think that generally speaking, before we move on to the next few questions, generally a lot of people tend to focus on the content itself to say this is halal, this is haram, but no one talks about the system and the way it works and how that can be equally as harmful. Would you argue as well?
And it is. I mean, and how far? I mean, when does it? So people are hooked on WhatsApp, then they're hooked on Facebook, then they're hooked on Twitter, hooked on Instagram. Well, where's your time?
Subhanallah.
Right? Where's your time? What are you doing with your time? When are you doing tilawah? When are you doing dhikr? When are you reading good books? When are you seeking knowledge? When are you doing anything? And then on top of that, when are you spending time with your wife, your husband, your family, your children, etc.? Everybody's hooked on a phone. It doesn't make any sense. I have a teenager at home, and he does have a smartphone, right? So when he's reading, I often ask him. That's the other part of it as well. That sometimes moderation goes both ways. Yeah. So I tend to always, rather than say, get off your phone, I tend to say to him, what are you doing? Right? What are you doing on your phone? And I'll wait for his answer. So if he says he's doing something that he shouldn't indulge too much in, then I might say, okay, maybe it's time to give it a break, right? Give it a break. But if he's doing something that is productive on his phone, which he does do, then I'll let it be. So that's the other thing. So I think that's another thing to recognize. Like, it is a tool. I spend a lot of time on my phone, right? But I deliberately have a phablet on which I can read. Yeah. So to the onlooker, I could be doing anything, right? But but I have hundreds of books in there.
Yeah, I was literally about to say the exact
same thing. So there is a lot of my son, for example, he reads a lot. Yeah. And he reads a lot on his phone. Yeah. Right. He writes a lot. And bizarrely, I hope he's not watching this, but bizarrely, he writes on his phone. I keep saying to him, it's better for your thumbs to write on your laptop. Yeah. You have a laptop, write on your laptop. No.
I mean, some of these tablets have pens as well.
Yeah, he writes as a hobby. No, he has that. He has a tablet. Yeah. He has a proper tablet, right? Yeah. He has all of that. But he prefers to write on his phone.
Interesting.
And he'll sit there for hours and he'll write. and right and right and right.
He's been conditioned through schooling and through generally.
So that's another thing. This is where the whole question of habits come in, right? Generational habits. He's doing something productive, but it's strange.
But it looks to the onlooker as if it's unproductive or it's
So these are all things we have to balance things out, and like and manage. We have to manage our engagement with social media, and most importantly, there has to be some balance, and we have to moderate.
I think,
and try to be. You have your devices. Find a way to be productive. Like have Kindle on there, right? Let's if you can't if you have nothing to do, at least you might see Kindle and you might open it, buy yourself a good book and read. Right.
Definitely.
Even if you're reading a novel, do you know what? It's better to read, right, a story, than to watch a story, because first of all, you're not going to see inappropriate images.
I would also argue in between that as well, before I move on to the next question, that even if you can't read that book for sake of argument, if you're traveling, you can even listen to that book.
Yeah, you can have, get audiobooks.
You can become, exactly.
Yeah, so I still haven't quite got into those, but audiobooks. Like if you're traveling, particularly, if it's something that, if you can't read, because you're walking or running or whatever, driving perhaps, then audiobooks are great.
Inshallah. Barakallah feekum, Shaykhana. That's a very comprehensive answer to that, sister. And just generally, how do we navigate social media in the current modern age? I believe it to be very pertinent, and also I don't believe it's discussed too much. So if you've listened, alhamdulillah, I feel.
And again, there's layers to this, right? So first, there's the question of devices, and how we use them. Then it's the question of social media as a separate entity. It's like in the olden days, people used to talk about TV and the harms of TV, etc., etc. We literally have to have the same conversation about social media because it's just as harmful. So you've got the device on the one hand, which I would say is neutral. Then you've got things like social media, which can to an extent be neutral, but their neutrality can be misunderstood in the sense that the too much social media itself is harmful, even if the content is good. Then third is the question of content.
It's personal responsibilities required.
And exactly. Otherwise, you can get carried away.
I mean, maybe perhaps this is inappropriate for me to say, but for those of you who are watching on YouTube and Facebook, do comment on this? How do you use the social media? Do you feel like you're using it well? Inshallah ta'ala, I'm sure the.
But what's the next thing you're going to do on social media? Watch this program and then go on and watch some nonsense, or is it? What's going to happen? These are all things that we have to evaluate. You understand?
The algorithms are getting sharper as well, inshallah. So, barakallah feekum, Shaykhuna. We have one question here. Assalamu alaikum. I live with my husband and children. My husband now wants my mother-in-law to move in, and I'm extremely upset about this as I want my own privacy. It is my duty to obey my husband. Is it my duty to obey my husband in this regard, or can I have a say about this? And what is my rights with regards to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question because the question is being asked. It's being framed in terms of rights, in terms of, do I have the right to object? Do I have the right? Do I have a say? Don't I have a say? I would have thought that normally in a healthy relationship, something like that would already be discussed and mutually agreed and arranged in a way. So, this is not a black and white issue. Is it, should your husband take care of his mother? Yes.
Depends how you
the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Should you support that? Yes, and you'll be rewarded for it. Are there other issues involved? Is she a difficult woman? Is it going to be difficult to live with her? Is it purely just a question of your privacy, or is it something else? Is there a way to manage both your privacy as well as her presence in the house? How big is the house? These are all significant. These are all questions that normally would come around a table and a mature adult couple, husband and wife, would discuss them and would be able to come up with a solution between themselves.
I think the most important thing they mentioned is mature.
Right.
Mature discussions.
Now, if you frame the question in terms of, do I have the right, do I have a say, etc., or does he not have to? You're already dealing with this issue in an unhealthy way, or you're framing the question in a way that actually leads to an unhealthy situation. Because if this becomes about, if I say, for example, no, this is entirely within his right, you have no right here. You're going to live possibly years of your life in grievance against your husband. And eventually the strain of that could collapse your marriage. Just because I am saying something is entirely his right and you have no say, doesn't mean you're going to be able to live with it.
Yes, subhanAllah.
Right? So this is the thing. Just because we have to obey our parents, don't mean we can always live with that.
Yeah.
Parents also have to be reasonable to ensure that they don't break our backs. They don't burden us beyond what we can bear. You understand my point?
Yeah.
So the same thing goes with spousal relationships and marriages. So I would say, you know, if you're both listening to this, right? Ideally, it should be. But if you were both listening to, I would say, sit together, put all the moving parts on the table, come up with a solution that works.
Yeah.
If then something becomes a sticking point and you end up in a point, you end up disagreeing on a detail, and it becomes like an irreconcilable issue,
Yeah.
then you can then get arbitration, or you can get somebody else to perhaps help you
Like a local
find
scholar to look
help
into
you
the
find
issue.
look into that issue and help you find a solution. To frame the question in terms of, do I have the right to, is this entirely his right, do I have a say, already spells problems, in my opinion.
I mean,
Right?
could you argue, Sheikh, on that?
Which is why I generally tend to not like answering that
It's
question. I
weaponized.
feel as though to answer a question that has been framed in that way is somehow actually contributing to tensions in the family. And I don't like answering questions like that.
Okay. Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
Somebody once asked me, my wife wants to go abroad with her family. Do I have the right to say no? Now, I could easily turn around and say, yeah, you have the right to say no. But now that I know the details, if I had done that, I would have broken that marriage. My answer
Exactly
would have broken that marriage
implications of
because
an
it
answer.
would have caused a grievance
Yeah.
in the wife's heart
Yeah.
that would have been insurmountable.
Yeah.
Because he would have been depriving her of a once in a lifetime opportunity with her family. Right? So instead of answering the question, I asked for some details.
Yeah.
Right? Which is basically, I can't ask for details here, but essentially that's what I'm suggesting. I'm saying you iron out the details. You bring out the details around the table and work them out. You know, I asked the guy, okay, well, you know, where is she going? Who's she going with? Oh, it's with her maharim, going back home. I said, does this happen often? No. This is the first time. Probably won't get another opportunity again in the future. And is she a good wife to you? Yes. Does she do you favors? Yes. Do you think this would be a favor to her? Yeah, this would be a favor. So what do you think? Do you think you should let her go? Yeah, I think I should let her go. That was the answer. But essentially, he's trying to use in the question he was trying to use me
as a
to give him a weapon against his wife.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if I hadn't clocked onto that, I would have contributed to a serious problem in that family.
I mean, slightly off topic before I move into the next question, I think it's very important, and alhamdulillah, Shaykhuna has clarified that with a lot of the shayukh, and there is a responsibility on their behalf to make sure that their question is not being used or weaponized against them for another party to then use that in a way that may even contribute to dhulm.
Yeah.
And there is
so if you want a straightforward answer, my answer is I'm not going to give you a straightforward answer. This is not a question of rights to me.
Yeah.
This is a question of you guys sitting and working this out.
Yeah.
Because the question isn't straightforward. It's not as simple as, do I have a say? I would say, yes, you do have a say, but yes, he has a duty to his mother. But there are circumstances here that may contribute to what is within his capacity and what isn't within his capacity that may require some sort of a compromise on both your parts. You have to be mature and work that out. Right? I can't give a black and white answer without understanding all of those details.
Barakallahu feekum, Shaykhana, for that. We have one more question, inshallah ta'ala, I would like to address before the end of the show. Assalamu alaikum. If someone is about to embark on a journey which will take a few hours, and they know in advance it will not be possible to perform several salah during that journey. So this winter being a very paramount example, Dhuhr, Asr, and Maghrib is the examples that he gave. Is it possible to pray all three before the journey together or after the journey? What would be your recommendation?
So before that, I would say that, can you not travel at a different time? Yeah, all of those, because there's two things here. One is, if you're going to travel anyway and you actually can't pray, meaning it is indeed physically impossible for you to pray in that journey.
Yeah.
The question then is, are you accountable for missing those prayers or delaying those prayers? Yes? Whether you are accountable or not would depend upon whether there were other ways available.
Okay.
Whether that journey was indeed necessary. A journey that threatens your prayer whether that was indeed
Could
necessary.
you argue that?
Now,
Yeah.
the question of combining prayers,
Mm.
there are different things that you can do. I mean, this can be part of your planning. You can
Okay.
plan the journey with the combining of the prayers taken into consideration. So, for example, according to some of the fuqaha, according to the majority of the fuqaha, the Shafi'is, the Hanabila, the Malikis, it's permissible to join prayers,
Okay.
but only Dhuhr and Asr together in either Dhuhr time or Asr time, or Maghrib and Isha together in either Maghrib time and Isha time for a person who's traveling. In the Hanafi madhab, it isn't permissible.
Okay.
Right? However, in the Hanafi madhab, you could delay your Dhuhr all the way up to Asr time and then stop 10 minutes before Asr time enters.
Yeah.
Pray your Dhuhr, wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
As soon as Asr time enters, pray your Asr. Do you understand? And that's that.
So basically, so Sheikh, just to
So it may be possible to plan your journey in a way that you don't miss any of your prayers, or you don't end up combining any of your prayers, or you take you follow the Shafi'i, Hanbali, Maliki opinion, and you do combine. There is no opinion. There's no precedent in the Sharia for combining three.
Okay.
For three salah, which is what the question said.
Yes.
There's no precedent for combining three prayers. There is only for Dhuhr and Asr, either early in Dhuhr time or late in Asr time.
Okay.
So, for example, if you did that, and in the worst case scenarios, I would say do that. I would even advise, as somebody who mostly follows the Hanafi method, I would say if you had no other recourse, you couldn't travel at any other time, then you can take this rukhsa, for example, and plan to pray your Dhuhr and Asr early as soon as Dhuhr time enters, pray your Maghrib and Isha late in Isha time, which gives you a big kind of travel time in between.
We have to end the show now. I hope that answered your question. We look forward to hearing you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.